They say evil doesn't bother knocking. It's already got a key, lives in your house, and sometimes even sleeps in the bed next to you. I'm about to share my story with you, a tough one, raw, but full of the messy, real stuff that makes us human. Hey there, my friends. I'm Ruth Davis, but everyone just calls me Grandma Ruth. I'm 73, born in 1952 in the charming mountain town of Asheville, North Carolina, a place my parents always bragged about. This is the first time I'm opening up about this. For over 60 years, I've kept this story locked tight in my heart, never sharing it with my kids or grandkids. So, if you're reading this, drop a like, follow along, and maybe let me know where you're from in the comments, Texas, California, Ohio, or maybe somewhere up in Canada. Your support gives me the courage to unpack this heavy load I've carried since I was a kid. Our home in Asheville was a stunner back in the day. 2 stories, a big old front porch, and a little garden my mum poured her heart into. Dad worked at the local bank, a respected guy around town, and Mum taught 3rd grade at the elementary school. From the outside, we had it all. Picture perfect, like something out of a magazine. But behind those lace curtains and the smell of Mum's fresh-baked pies, there was a secret so dark it still chokes me up to talk about. That secret had a name. Emily Davis Carter, my half-sister from my dad's side. Emily was 6 years older than me and moved in with us when I was 9. Before that, she lived with her mum, someone Dad knew back in Charleston before he met my mum. When Emily's mum passed from pneumonia, Dad said it was only right to take her in. Family's family, he'd say. I was thrilled at first. A sister! I pictured us swapping secrets, borrowing clothes, giggling under the covers like in the books I loved. But Emily wasn't like those storybook sisters. From the moment she arrived, her stare could freeze you, even in the sticky heat of a North Carolina summer. "This is your home now, Emily," Mum said, showing her the room we'd share. "You and Ruth are going to be thick as thieves." That first night, when the house went quiet and it was just us in the dark, Emily sat on my bed. "You've got it easy, don't you?" she whispered, her voice low. "Perfect house, perfect parents, everything handed to you." "I'm sorry about your mum," I mumbled, unsure what else to say. She laughed, sharp and cold. "No, you're not. You don't even know me, but you will." That night, it started. At first, it was just touches. She'd wait until the house was asleep, then slip into my bed, saying she was scared, didn't know the place, needed company. I was 9, naive, trusting. I believed her. "Sisters gotta stick together," she'd whisper, her hands wandering where they shouldn't. "This is our little secret." When I squirmed away, her grip tightened, leaving bruises. "Tell anyone and I'll say you started it. I'll hurt myself and blame you." Who do you think they'll believe? Poor little orphan me, or you, the spoiled brat with everything? Fear locked me up tight. I was just a kid, confused, knowing it was wrong, feeling dirty, but too scared to speak. That was only the beginning. Months turned into a nightmare routine. By day, Emily was the model sister, helping with my homework, braiding my hair, playing in the yard. "Look at them," Dad would beam to Mum, "like they've been sisters forever." But when the bedroom door closed at night, she changed. Those hands that braided my hair now crossed lines I didn't even understand. That smile from family photos turned into hissed threats. "Tell, and they'll think you're the sick one. They'll hate you." It got worse. Emily started hurting me on purpose. Scratches down my back, pinches in places no one would see, bites on my shoulders and stomach, always hidden by clothes. When I cried, she'd clamp a hand over my mouth. "Quiet, princess," she'd mock. "Don't want to wake Mom and Dad, do we?" One night I found some courage. I told her I'd scream, loud enough for the neighbours to hear, no matter who believed me. Emily didn't flinch. She just smiled, went back to her bed, and the next morning showed up at breakfast with a cut on her arm. "What happened?" Mum gasped, horrified. "Oh, nothing," Emily said, eyes welling up. "Must have scraped it on the dresser last night." Later, alone, she flashed a tiny razor blade she'd hidden. Next time you threaten to tell, it won't be a little scratch. Got it? And I'll say you did it." That shut me up. I was 10, terrified of being blamed, of hurting the poor orphan my parents had welcomed. Months stretched into years. Emily turned 15, then 16, then 17, and I was still caught in her web of fear and shame. At school, I was the quiet kid, dodging PE to hide my bruises, my grades slipping because I couldn't focus. Nightmares kept me up. I faked stomachaches to skip school, clinging to the fragile safety of my parents' presence. Mum started to notice. "Ruth, you've been so down," she'd say. "Is something going on at school? Are kids being mean?" I wanted to spill everything, the words burning in my throat. But Emily's cold stare, that hidden blade, her twisted threats, they stopped me. "I'm fine, Mum, just tired." Emily got smarter, crueler. She didn't just scare me, she guilted me. "You know why I do this?" she asked one night, after another round of her so-called sisterly love. "You've got the perfect mom, the dad I always wanted. I got scraps, so now you share a little of what's yours. Fair, right?" How does an 11-year-old answer that? How do you make sense of cruelty dressed up as fairness? All I knew was the pain, the wrongness, and the desperate wish for it to stop. Then, one ordinary day, everything shifted. I woke up burning with a fever, throat on fire. Mom checked me and said, "No school today, sweetheart." Stay in bed. Emily went off to her senior year, talking about college in Charleston or maybe New York. The thought of her leaving was my only sliver of hope. I slept through the morning, fever dragging me under. When I woke, parched, I stumbled to the kitchen in my thin nightgown, still sweaty and weak. I grabbed a glass of water, hearing the front door unlock. I turned, expecting Mum back from the pharmacy, ready to say I felt a bit better. But it wasn't just Mum. Dad was there too. They'd run into each other on the way home, I later learned. They stopped dead in the kitchen doorway, staring at me with a look I'll never forget. Confusion, then horror, then a fury I'd never seen on Mum's face. "Ruth, what's on your body?" Mum's voice shook. The light poured through the window, exposing everything. Bruises on my arms and legs, bite marks peeking out from my nightgown's edge, scratches on my thighs. I scrambled to cover up, mumbling about falling, roughhousing, anything. But Mum stepped closer, gently lifting my sleeve. There they were, clear fingerprints, adult hands on a child's skin. "Who did this to you?" Dad's voice was low, like a storm about to break. "Ruth, please, who?" The tears came before I could stop them. After years of silence, fear and shame, standing there in that sunlit kitchen, the dam finally broke. "Emily," I whispered through sobs. It was Emily. This is the first piece of my story, and let me tell you, it's hard to put into words. Even now my heart aches carrying this, but there's more to come, and I'm ready to keep going if you are. You know what they say back in Asheville, a secret you bury is a wound that festers forever. If this story's hitting you in the feels, pass it along to someone who might need it. Sometimes seeing someone else's pain gives us the guts to face our own. The kitchen went dead quiet after I spilled the truth. It was like the air turned to concrete, pinning us all in place. Mum stood frozen, still clutching my nightgown sleeve, her eyes locked on the bruises like they were a map to some awful truth. Dad slumped against the wall, looking like he'd collapse without it holding him up. "How long?" Mum whispered, her voice so soft I barely caught it. "Since she got here," I said, tears pouring down. "Almost 2 years." Dad let out this gut-wrenching sound, like a wounded dog. I'd never seen him like that. A man who stood tall, always steady, now crumbling inside. "Why didn't you tell us, sweetheart?" he asked, kneeling in front of me, his eyes glistening. "She said you wouldn't believe me," I sobbed. "Said she'd cut herself, blame me, and you'd hate me, send me away." Mum wrapped me in her arms, gentle like I was spun glass. Her tears soaked my hair as she murmured, "Oh my God, oh my God." She led me to my room, helped me change, her hands trembling as she studied every mark on my skin with this mix of horror and quiet rage I'd never seen in her. I told her everything, or as much as I could bear to say. Some things were too raw to speak, but I told her about the nights, the threats, the constant dread. "Did she touch you?" Mum's voice broke on the question. I couldn't meet her eyes, just dropped my head. That was answer enough. What came next was a storm. Dad stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I heard the car roar to life, tyres screeching as he peeled out. Mum stayed with me, holding me, crying, apologising for not seeing it sooner, for not keeping me safe. "It's not your fault, Mum," I kept saying, feeling a weight lift off my chest for the first time in years. Someone knew, someone believed me. I fell asleep in her arms, drained from crying, from finally letting it all out. When I woke, the sun was dipping low. Angry voices echoed from the living room. I dragged myself out of bed, still wobbly, and cracked open the door to peek. Dad was back, pacing like a caged animal. Mum sat on the couch, her face streaked from hours of tears. And there was Emily, standing in the middle of the room in her school uniform, pale but with that defiant smirk I knew too well. "It's all lies," she shouted. "She's making it up. You're going to believe her over me? Me, who lost my mum, who's got no one." "Enough, Emily." Dad's voice shook with fury. "Ruth told us everything. We saw the marks. Now I know why she's been so sad, so scared. It was you. This whole time you were hurting my daughter." "Your daughter?" Emily's laugh was icy, no warmth in it. "And what am I? The mistake you only took in because my mum died and you had no choice?" "We gave you a home." Mum shot up from the couch. "We treated you like our own, and you—" Her words choked off, stuck in her throat. "You never wanted me," Emily said, her voice dropping, cold and controlled. "I was just a burden, a smudge on your perfect little family. Ruth's always been the golden child. I just wanted her to feel a fraction of what I've felt my whole life." Her words hit like a winter wind, no remorse, just that same bitter anger I'd come to know. "You're done here," Dad said, his voice final. "I called your aunt in Charleston. She's coming tomorrow to get you. Until then, you're staying in the guest room, locked in, and if you try anything, I'm calling the cops." "Cops?" Emily laughed again. "What are you going to say? That your reject daughter hurt your precious one? That'll look great for your fancy bank job, won't it, Dad?" I saw Dad's face twist, his fists clenched so tight I thought he might lose it. But he held back. "Get out of my sight," he growled. "Now." Emily shrugged, like it was nothing, but as she turned toward the guest room, her eyes caught mine through the crack in the door. That look, it wasn't just anger. It was pure, sharp hatred, promising something worse. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding so hard I thought it had burst. She was caught. She was leaving. I'd be free. But that look said this wasn't over. That night was eerie. Mum brought me dinner in my room, not wanting me anywhere near Emily. Dad sat outside the guest room door, a chair parked in the hallway like a sentinel. No one slept much. In the dead of night I heard Emily crying, not her usual fake tears, but an angry, frustrated wail, like someone who'd lost the control they craved. Morning came, and Emily's Aunt Regina showed up early. She was a middle-aged woman we barely knew, only seen once at Emily's mum's funeral years back. She looked awkward, confused. "What happened?" she asked Dad in the hallway. "On the phone, you just said Emily can't stay here anymore." Dad glanced at Mum, hesitating. "How do you explain something like this?" "Emily needs help," Mum said finally, her voice shaky. "Help we can't give. She hurt Ruth, badly, for a long time." Regina's face clouded with confusion. "Hurt? How? Did they fight? Sisters fight, that's normal." "It wasn't a fight," Dad cut in, his voice like steel. "It was abuse, systematic, for almost 2 years." The truth sank into Regina's face slowly, her eyes widening, mouth dropping open. "My God, but she's just a kid. She's 17. "Old enough to know better," Mum said, her voice trembling, old enough to answer for it. Emily appeared then, a small suitcase in hand, dressed like she was heading to school, her face blank. "Aunt Regina," she said with a polite smile. "Good to see you." The normalcy of it was chilling, like she hadn't torn our world apart. I watched from the stairs, half hidden, needing to see her leave, to know it was real. Before she walked out, Emily's eyes swept the room, searching. Then they found me. For a split second she smiled, not the fake one for her aunt, but a cold, private one just for me. A smile that whispered, "This isn't over." Then the door shut behind her and the house fell silent, like a storm had passed but left the air heavy. The days after were strange, like stepping into a new world I didn't trust yet. I didn't have to dread the nights anymore, didn't have to hide bruises or make up lies. But fear's a stubborn thing. I'd jump at loud noises, wake up from nightmares, glance over my shoulder expecting Emily's shadow. Mum took me to a doctor in Charlotte. He checked my marks, asked gentle but pointed questions, scribbled in his notes. Then he spoke to my parents alone. When they came out, their eyes were red. "We're getting you a therapist, honey," Mum said on the drive home. "Someone you can talk to about all this." The idea of spilling my guts to a stranger scared me, but I nodded. I wanted to feel normal, whatever that meant. Life crept back to routine. School started again. Therapy began. The bruises faded, but the invisible scars, those throbbed under my skin. For weeks, we heard nothing about Emily. It was like she'd vanished, taking her darkness with her. I started to hope, really hope, that the nightmare was over. Then, one night, the phone rang late. I was in my room, finally mine alone, free of Emily's presence. I heard Dad answer, then a long silence, followed by a thud like something heavy dropped. I ran out, heart racing. Dad stood in the living room, phone in hand, his face pale as ash. "What's wrong?" I asked, dread creeping in. He looked at me, eyes distant, like he'd forgotten I was there. "Dad, what happened?" "Emily ran away," he said, his voice hollow. "She took off from Regina's last night. No one knows where she is." The world dropped out from under me. Emily was out there somewhere, and deep in my gut I knew she'd come for me. That smile as she left, that cold, hateful glare, it was a promise without words. And Emily? She kept her promises. Life throws curveballs that feel too heavy to catch, my friends. My grandma used to say the good Lord never hands you a load your shoulders can't bear, but at 11 years old I felt like mine were about to snap under the weight of fear. Little did I know the real storm was brewing, ready to crash down on our family like a tidal wave. What happened next turned an ordinary night into a nightmare no one could have imagined. A fire, both literal and not, sparked by Emily's rage, burning everything in its path. Sleep was a lost cause after that phone call. Every creak of the house, every rustle of wind against the windows sounded like Emily creeping closer to keep her silent vow. Dad tried to calm me, saying she'd probably bolted to New York, chasing the big city dreams she always rambled about, starting fresh. But I knew her better than he did. Revenge was her fuel, and she wouldn't just vanish. For 3 days, we lived like we were under siege. Dad put new locks on every door and window. Mum wouldn't let me step outside alone, not even to the mailbox. At school, the front office lady kept a hawk's eye on me, per my parents' orders. It felt like a prison, even if it was to keep me safe. By the 3rd night, we were frayed, but starting to hope Dad was right. Maybe Emily had really gone. Then came the smell. I was tossing in bed, chasing sleep, when a sharp chemical stench hit me. It stung my eyes, scratched my throat. I woke up coughing, confused. The room was dark, but an orange glow flickered through the window, dancing on the walls like it was alive. I stumbled out of bed, groggy, and peered outside. My blood turned to ice. Fire. Mum's beloved garden was a blaze of flames. And there, in the middle of that hellish glow, stood a figure. Even from a distance, even with a scarf half hiding her face, I'd know those eyes anywhere. The eyes that haunted my nights, that gleamed when I flinched, that promised payback. Emily. She was staring right at my window, like she knew I was watching. In her hand, a bottle. I stood frozen as she raised it like a toast to my fear and hurled it at the house. A small explosion, a burst of flame, and the fire roared up the porch, swallowing Mum's handmade curtains, clawing at the dry wood. "Fire!" I screamed, lungs burning. "Mum, Dad, fire!" I ran into the hallway, choking on smoke already seeping in. Doors flew open as my parents stumbled out, groggy but alert. "What's happening?" Dad yelled, rushing from their room. "Fire! The house is burning! It's Emily! She's outside!" His face went white. He bolted to the hallway window, looked down, and let out a curse I'd never heard from him. "Mary!" he shouted to Mum. "Get Ruth out the back now!" Mum appeared, tying her robe, eyes wide with panic. "What's going on, John?" "The house is on fire. Take Ruth and go. I'll call the fire department." The phone was downstairs. Dad charged down, vanishing into the thickening smoke. Mum grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the back staircase, a narrow passage we barely used. "What about Dad?" I resisted, heart racing. "We can't leave him." "He'll be right behind us," Mum said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "Move, Ruth." We stumbled down the stairs, the smoke lighter there but still stinging my eyes, burning my throat. Outside, the crackle of flames devoured the front of the house, wood snapping under the heat. We burst through the kitchen door into the small fenced yard. Mum shoved open the gate to the side street, pushing me out. "Run to Mrs. Larson's," she ordered, pointing to our neighbour across the way. "Tell her to call the police and fire department. I'm getting your father." "No, Mum," I grabbed her arm. "Come with me." She gently pulled free. "Your dad might be trapped. I can't leave him. Go, Ruth. Run." Her voice, desperate and fierce, made me obey. Barefoot, in my thin nightgown, I sprinted down the street, the cold air biting my skin, still hot from the fire's glow. I pounded on Mrs. Larson's door, screaming for help. The lights flicked on, and her sleepy face appeared. One look at me, barefoot, sooty, with our house glowing orange behind me, and she got it. "Good Lord," she gasped. "Walter, wake up! Call the fire department. The Davises' house is burning." Her husband stumbled out, half-dressed, took one look and ran into the street, yelling for help. Within minutes, the neighbourhood was chaos, men grabbing buckets, women shouting, kids crying. All I could think about was Mum and Dad, still inside that inferno. Why weren't they out yet? Mrs. Larson tried to keep me inside, but I broke free. I had to know. I ran back, her yells fading behind me. The scene at our house was like something from a nightmare. Flames had swallowed the ground floor. The porch was a pile of rubble, part of the roof gone. Black smoke choked the sky, hiding the stars. "Mum! Dad!" I screamed, voice raw. No answer, just the fire's roar, eating everything. I lunged toward the house, but strong arms caught me, Mr. Larson pulling me back. "No, kid, you'll die in there." "My parents are inside," I thrashed against him. "Let me go." "Firefighters are coming," he said, gripping me tight. "They'll get them out." A deafening crash split the night. The second floor caved in, dragging more of the roof down. Sparks shot up like twisted fireworks. "No!" The scream tore from my soul. "Mum! Dad!" Then I saw them. Two figures staggered out the back door, covered in soot. Dad was carrying Mum, her head limp, face black with smoke. "Help!" he croaked, voice ragged. "She's not breathing." Mr. Larson let me go and ran over with other neighbours. They took Mum from Dad's arms, laid her on the street. Someone who knew first aid started CPR, pressing on her chest, breathing into her mouth. I stood there, frozen, watching Mum, so strong, so full of life, lie still on the asphalt. Dad knelt beside her, coughing, his face twisted with pain and fear. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A figure slipping away down the side street, moving fast. I knew that walk, that shape. Emily. Something in me snapped. All the fear, The pain, the rage I'd bottled up for years exploded. Without thinking, I took off after her. "Come back!" I yelled, voice raw. "Look what you did!" She glanced back, saw me gaining, and sped up. But I was fueled by something bigger than me. My bare feet slapped the pavement, pain ignored, nothing mattering except catching her. At the corner I got close. My hand grazed her shirt, yanking it. She spun, shocked I'd caught up. For a split second our eyes locked, and there it was, fear in her eyes for the first time. Emily, afraid of me. But it didn't last. She jerked free, hard, sending me sprawling to the ground. By the time I scrambled up, she was gone, swallowed by the dark. Sirens wailed in the distance. Firefighters were coming. So was Dad's voice, hoarse but strong, calling my name from the smoke. I sprinted back to where I'd left my parents, heart pounding like it was trying to break free. Mum was sitting up now, coughing hard but alive. Alive. The relief hit so strong my knees buckled, and I collapsed beside her, sobbing. "Mum," I choked out, hugging her gently, afraid she'd break. "I thought I lost you." She tried to smile, but a coughing fit stole it. Her smoke-reddened eyes found mine, and she rasped, "I'm okay, sweetheart. Thank God we're all okay." Fire trucks roared up, sirens screaming, followed by an ambulance. Paramedics rushed us to the hospital, treating us for smoke inhalation. Mum had it worst. She'd been trapped when part of the ceiling caved in, breathing in too much smoke. They kept her overnight. In the ER, lying on a gurney next to Dad's bed as nurses checked his vitals, I spilled everything. "I saw Emily," I said, tears mixing with the soot on my face. "She was out there. She wanted to kill us." Dad gripped my hand, his eyes a storm of fear and resolve. "She won't come near you again," he vowed, voice steady despite the rawness. Never. Police showed up to take our statements. We laid it all bare, the abuse, Emily's banishment, the fire. They scribbled notes, promised to track her down, to make her answer for it. But deep down I knew Emily wasn't the kind to get caught easily. She was cunning, always a step ahead, and now she was desperate, a cornered animal with nothing to lose. That night in the hospital, the sharp smell of disinfectant replaced the stench of smoke, but I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying it all. Our house, where I'd taken my first steps, where Mom taught me piano, where Dad read his evening paper, was gone. My toys, my books, my clothes, all ash. But the real loss wasn't the stuff. It was knowing Emily was still out there, her hatred for me a bottomless well. Morning came, the sky outside the hospital window glowing pink and gold. A new day. We'd survived. But at what cost? And how long could we stay safe? My friends, sometimes life throws you face to face with pure darkness. That night was just the start of a long, brutal road. Emily's fire didn't just burn our house. It torched our peace, our safety, and left scars that lingered for decades. Life can shatter you, but as my grandma used to say, a cracked pot still holds water. And so, broken but pushing forward, I faced the years ahead. We stayed with Mrs. Larson for 2 weeks after the fire. Her and her husband's kindness kept us afloat. We crammed into their guest room, sleeping on floor mattresses, wearing ill-fitting clothes donated by neighbours and the church. Our house was a husk, blackened walls standing like a skeleton, the inside gutted. The piano where Mum taught me Twinkle, Twinkle, Dad's armchair, my carefully organised books, all gone. Even our family photos, every snapshot of our life turned to ash. But the worst wasn't the things we lost. It was the fear, heavy and relentless, stealing my sleep, making me jump at every sound, keeping me from being alone even for a second. Emily was still out there. The police scoured Asheville, checked nearby towns, even Charlotte. Nothing. She'd vanished like the smoke from her fire. 2 weeks later, Dad sat us down, his voice still rough from the smoke. "We can't keep living like this," he said. "We need a fresh start." "Somewhere else?" I asked, my heart sinking. Asheville was all I knew, my school, my handful of friends, my whole world. Another state, Dad said, far from here, where she can't find us. Mum nodded, her eyes distant since the fire. The smoke had scarred her lungs, left burns on her arms and legs, but the deeper wounds were invisible. The trauma of nearly dying, of watching her life burn in minutes. "Where?" she whispered. "Columbus, Ohio," Dad answered. "My cousin there lined up a job at a bank. We can start over. No one knows us." No one knows her. A month later, we boarded a bus, carrying everything we owned in 3 suitcases, clothes, documents and memories too heavy to unpack. The trip took 2.5 days, a blur of highways, greasy diner food, and fitful sleep. In my dreams, Emily chased me through burning mazes, her cold smile glowing in the flames. Columbus felt like another world. Bigger, louder, colder than Asheville, with an accent I could barely pass at first. Dad's cousin, Uncle George, welcomed us into his small downtown apartment. "You'll like it here," he said, showing us the spare room. "Good schools, good people, plenty of opportunities." It was weird being the girl to someone who didn't know me. Everything was weird, like I was a tree ripped from the ground, roots dangling, planted in foreign soil. That first week, I barely left the apartment. The fear of Emily had grown into something bigger, fear of the world, of strangers, of anything new. "She needs help," I overheard Mum tell Dad one night, thinking I was asleep. It's not right for a kid to be this scared, always looking over her shoulder. So, along with a new home and school, I got weekly sessions with Dr. Sanders, a child psychologist. At first I hated it. Sitting with a stranger, digging up the worst parts of my life, felt like torture. Some days I just drew on the paper she gave me, silent. But slowly the words started to slip out. The knot in my throat, tied tight by Emily, the abuse, the fire, began to loosen. "What happened wasn't your fault," Dr. Sanders said every session, like a lifeline. "It doesn't define you." Time crept on. Dad started his bank job. Mum took a job as a school aide, her lungs too weak to teach any more. We rented a small apartment, furnishing it bit by bit with second-hand stuff. Life stitched itself back together, piece by fragile piece. But the nightmares didn't stop. I'd wake up screaming, soaked in sweat, seeing flames or Emily's hands reaching for me. At school, I was the odd one out. The quiet girl who flinched at sudden moves, who zoned out in class, staring at ghosts no one else saw. Kids whispered I was an orphan, diseased, crazy. I didn't care. People were danger. Trust was a trap. I'd vowed never to be vulnerable again. Then, in our second year in Columbus, when I was 13, a letter arrived, no return address. Inside, a newspaper clipping about an arson fire in Cincinnati. A boarding house, 2 people dead, scrawled in the margin in handwriting we all recognised. Still not over. Dad took it straight to the police. They filed a report, promised to dig deeper, but with no address, no clear fingerprints, they were stuck. "Keep a low profile," they told us, same as in North Carolina. "Don't share your location, stay vigilant." That letter shattered what little peace we'd scraped together. Fear came roaring back. Dad put new locks on our apartment. Mum started picking me up from school daily, no matter how exhausted she was. Nightmares hit every night, panic attacks struck at school, and I couldn't stand being alone. Emily was out there, and her shadow loomed larger than ever. Dr. Sanders upped my sessions, trying to help me wrestle the fear that roared back with that letter. "Emily wants you to live in a cage of fear," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's the last grip she has on you. Don't let her win." Easier said than done. How do you shake off fear of someone who tormented you for years, tried to burn your family alive, and left a note promising she wasn't done? Time trudged on. I turned 14, then 15, then 16. Teenage years are supposed to be about first crushes, chasing dreams, soaking up life. For me, It was survival mode. Every day without a panic attack was a win. Every nightmare-free sleep was a miracle. No more letters came, no direct word of Emily, but her shadow hung over us like a storm cloud that wouldn't budge. At 17, something shifted. The anger I'd buried under fear and shame started clawing its way out. Anger at Emily for what she stole from me. Anger at myself for letting her ghost control me. Anger at a world that let people like her exist. That's when I found running. Dr. Sanders suggested exercise to ease anxiety, but it became my lifeline. When I ran, the noise in my head, memories, fears, that constant dread, faded. It was just me, my breath, my feet hitting the pavement. Running wasn't just escape, it was power. My body, once a source of shame, started to feel like mine again, strong, fast, capable. I pushed harder, ran longer, felt my muscles grow, my stamina build. For the first time since the abuse, I wasn't just surviving, I was claiming myself back. Senior year, I joined the school track team. My teammates didn't know my story, didn't get why I kept everyone at arm's length, but they respected my space and cheered my grit. Slowly, I let a few walls crumble. At 18, I faced a big choice. What next? My parents wanted me to go to college, study something safe like business or accounting, but I wanted to run. I craved the freedom I only felt when my legs carried me forward, leaving everything behind. Then I heard about a track program in Cleveland, a shot at bigger competitions, maybe even nationals. It was a long shot, but I tried out and to my shock got in. At 19, I packed my bags, not running from something this time, but toward it. Cleveland was terrifying and thrilling. The training was brutal. 5 a.m. wake-ups, grueling workouts, studying nutrition and technique. I shared a cramped apartment with 2 other athletes, girls with their own stories. I kept my guard up, dodging personal questions, staying distant, but living, training and laughing with them every day chipped away at my defences. Lisa, a Texan with a no-nonsense vibe, broke through first. "Everyone's got baggage," she said one night after I turned down another group outing. "Some's heavier than others, but you can't let it steal your now." Her words hit hard. How long would I let Emily, a ghost who might be anywhere, alive or dead, run my life? Bit by bit, I started sharing, not the whole story, but pieces. And here's the thing, letting it out didn't break me. It made the load lighter. Competitions started, small local meets, then state-level races. Running demanded focus, leaving no room for fear or doubt. By 22, I got the chance of a lifetime, a spot in the US Track and Field Championships representing Ohio. It was my dream, but life has a way of throwing curveballs just when you think you're in the clear. Right at the peak of my fresh start, Emily's shadow crept back in a way I never saw coming. The championships were in Los Angeles, 3 days of high-stakes races with athletes from across the country. I'd never faced this kind of pressure, with crowds watching and so much on the line. I left Cleveland with the Ohio team, my heart torn between excitement and nerves. My parents planned to come watch, their first time seeing me compete. They didn't fully get why I chose running, but they cheered me on from afar. LA was a whirlwind, bright, loud, chaotic. The athletes' village near the stadium was its own world, buzzing with competitors, all tense, all dreaming of glory. My event was the 5,000 metres. I wasn't a favourite, but I'd shaved seconds off my times, trained harder than ever. I was ready to prove I could handle this. The night before the race, we were in the cafeteria when an organiser walked in with a clipboard. "Listen up," she called. "Tomorrow's a big day. Here's the final schedule and judges for each event." I half listened, my mind already on the track, picturing every stride, every turn. For the women's 5,000 metres, judges are Marcus Reynolds, Emily Carter and Robert Torres. The world stopped. The cafeteria's chatter vanished. My chest tightened, air too thick to breathe. Emily Carter. A coincidence? How many Emily Carters could there be? But my body knew before my brain caught up. A chill down my spine, a pit opening in my stomach. It was her. "You okay?" Lisa asked, catching my sudden pallor. "You look like you saw a ghost." A ghost, that's exactly what it was, the spectre that stole my childhood, tried to kill my family, now a judge in my race. I stumbled out of the cafeteria, ignoring Lisa's calls, needing air. Outside, I sank onto a bench, trembling in the LA heat. How? How was she here, a track judge of all things? Did she know I'd be competing? I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking, and called Dad. He picked up on the third ring. "Ruth, you okay, honey? We're almost to LA. "Dad," I choked out, "don't come. Please, she's here. Emily's a judge in my event." Silence. Then his voice, tight but steady. "You sure?" "They said her name, Emily Carter. It's her. It has to be." "We're 2 hours out," he said. "We won't go to the stadium. We're heading to the nearest police station. If it's her, they need to know. She's still wanted for the arson." The weight of it sank in. Emily wasn't just a shadow anymore. She was real, close, and maybe closer to me than ever. Emily, the shadow I feared most, would be there tomorrow, judging my race. What was she planning? Revenge? I lay awake all night, wrestling with my options. Quit the race? Confront her? Hide until the police stepped in? Every choice felt impossible, and the clock was ticking. Morning came, and my coach noticed the strain. "Ruth, you okay? You look sick." How could I explain a decade of terror in a sentence? I mumbled something about pre-race jitters and pushed on. As I slipped on my uniform, tied my shoes and warmed up, my body moved on autopilot while my mind screamed in panic. Then Dr. Sanders' words echoed from years back. "She wants you to live in fear. It's the power she still has. Don't let her win." It hit me like a lightning bolt. Emily had controlled me for too long, silencing me, driving us from our home, forcing me to hide inside myself. Not this time. I wasn't running away anymore. Walking to the track with the other runners, I scanned the judge's stand. There she was. Older, like me, with shorter hair, wire-rimmed glasses and a clipboard. But those eyes, that posture, that smug air, it was her. Our gazes locked. I saw the moment she recognized me. A flicker of surprise, then that old predatory gleam, the one that used to herald her worst cruelties. I didn't look away. For the first time I faced Emily head-on, my body trembling not with fear, but with rage. Raw, righteous anger for the child I was, the teenager I couldn't be, the years she stole. The starting gun cracked. My legs felt heavy at first, fear dragging like an anchor. But with each step, each breath, a fire sparked inside me. This track was my space, not hers. Here I was strong. Here I could win. The 5,000 metres is a gruelling dance of mind and body. 12.5 laps, nearly 15 minutes of pushing past exhaustion. Halfway through, I was in the top 5, farther up than usual. Something fierce was driving me, a strength I'd never tapped before. Every time I passed the judge's stand, I felt Emily's eyes boring into me. Instead of shrinking, I burned hotter. On the final lap, the bell rang for the last 400 metres. I was in 4th, the California leader too far ahead to catch. But this wasn't about a medal. It was about proving to Emily, to myself, that she had no hold over me. I surged, passing the Illinois runner, then the New Yorker in the final curve. I crossed the finish line in 2nd, my best time ever. The crowd roared. My coach leapt, stunned. I was breathless, spent, but a tidal wave of euphoria hit me. I'd won a national silver medal under the gaze of the person who swore to break me. At the medal ceremony, Emily was gone, bolted, claiming a family emergency. The irony almost made me laugh. I met my parents at a quiet cafe far from the stadium. They'd gone to the police, reported Emily's presence, given every detail. "Was it really her?" Mum asked, her face tight with worry. "Absolutely," I said. "She recognised me. I recognised her." "What did you feel?" Dad asked, squeezing my hand. I paused, then answered, "Strength." That night the LA police called. Emily had been detained trying to board a bus to San Francisco. What followed was a whirlwind. I returned to Cleveland with my silver medal and a summons to testify in the reopened case against her. I had to recount it all, the abuse, the fire, the years of fear. But this time I spoke with a voice I didn't have before. I wasn't the scared girl anymore. I was a woman who'd faced her demon and stayed standing. The trial came 6 months later. Emily faced charges of child abuse, attempted murder and arson. The evidence was crushing. My testimony, my parents, and new links to the Cincinnati boarding house fire that killed 2 people. A crime she'd slipped through until now. Facing her in court was brutal, sitting just yards away, her eyes drilling into me as I detailed her horrors. It was like reliving the trauma in one gut-wrenching rush. But this time, I wasn't alone. My parents were there, my track teammates, my coach, all in the courtroom, rooting for me. Most importantly, I wasn't silenced. I spoke with the certainty that truth deserved to be heard. Emily got 30 years. When the judge read the sentence, I looked at her one last time. That smug gleam was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness, the look of someone finally facing their reckoning. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt something new. Peace. Not perfect, not complete, some scars never fully fade, but enough to breathe without a weight on my chest, to sleep without triple-checking locks, to live without glancing over my shoulder. Life moved forward. I kept running, racking up more medals, more titles, but the real victory was inside, the freedom to choose my path without fear calling the shots. At 28, I met David, a sports physical therapist with a quiet kindness that drew me in. Our first meeting was all business, an ankle injury that wouldn't quit. But his patience, his warmth, the way he treated everyone like they mattered, it got under my skin. Trust took time. Even months into dating, I held back parts of my story. But David never pushed. "Tell me when you're ready," he'd say, "or don't. I love who you are now." We married at 30, a small ceremony with family and close friends. Mum sobbed through it, happy tears, relieved to see me find joy after everything. At 32, our son Michael was born. Holding him, so tiny and perfect, I vowed to shield him from the pain I'd known, but also to teach him strength, to face fears, to never let others define him. At 35, our daughter Lily arrived, and with her a decision. It was time to share my story. Not with her, she was too young, but with the world. I wrote a book, using pseudonyms to protect our privacy. I poured it all out, the abuse, the fire, the escape, the fear, the freedom. It wasn't a blockbuster, but it found its people. Letters and emails started coming from survivors, people who'd faced their own darkness and found hope in my words. Sharing didn't just lighten my load, it built a bridge to others, reminding me I wasn't alone. That's how I started working with organisations dedicated to protecting kids and teens. Not as a therapist or social worker, I didn't have the training for that, but as someone who could look a survivor in the eye and say, "I get it, I've been there, and there's life on the other side of trauma." At 40, I stumbled into another passion, painting. It started as therapy, a way to spill out feelings I still couldn't put into words. But those canvases, bursting with wild colours and abstract shapes, became something more. They caught eyes. At 43, I had my first exhibition in a small Cleveland gallery. A full, vibrant life, one that seemed impossible to the scared girl from Asheville. A life built not in spite of my past, but because of it. The trauma taught me resilience, the power of healing, and the importance of reaching out to others in pain. Now, at 73, I look back on the long road I've travelled. The scars are still there. Some never fully fade. I still have nightmares now and then, certain triggers that yank me back to those dark days. But I also see the strength I found, the people I've helped, the love I've given and received. Emily died in prison 15 years after her conviction. A heart attack, the report said. When I got the news, I didn't feel joy or relief, no tidy closure. I felt nothing. Because long before she was gone, I'd already taken back the power she once held over me. My friends, if this story touches you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who needs to know there's life after trauma, that pain doesn't get to define us, that our tormentors only have the power we give them. If you're walking through something like this, you're not alone. Help is out there. People will believe you. There's a future where this pain doesn't own every piece of you. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of my stories. This is Grandma Ruth, sending you a big ol' hug. Life breaks us sometimes, but it's in the rebuilding that we find our strength, our wisdom, and our